if someone has to reschedule, but it's still cool that you agreed to do it like today right away. Many people are like, oh, next week or something. I don't really like
It's
to
like,
plan ahead too much.
yeah, usually I'm someone who would be like, oh, let's do it next week. But lately I've just been trying to
Yeah.
like fit in a bunch of calls and talks. So
So I'm typing. Sorry. Um, you are founder, right? Co-founder.
right.
Okay. And if you want, you can retweet, but you don't have to. Um, you know, I leave some tags. Um, you are very early person. Like you messaged me around. It was around 6 a.m. of your time, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm not always up that early. Just sometimes if I'm thinking about a lot of things, I just wake up
All
to
right.
do stuff.
Can I ask you? Do you work or anything else, or Nomic is your main focus as of now?
Nomic's my main focus, but I have a side hustle of basically collecting TikTok data and selling it to record labels. And so that's essentially how Nomic's been funded all this time, is like bootstrapping. We haven't raised any money
Mhm.
from investors or anything like that. It's just side revenue. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's start for good. Could you introduce yourself? And I would like to learn about your background because it seems really cool. Like you even collecting the data. So if you can tell me your background, how you got into crypto, and essentially to Cosmos.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm Matt. I'm just definitely an engineer at heart, and I've been into crypto since 2011 when I first discovered Bitcoin. When like basically I've just always really been interested in peer-to-peer networks. Like I was just like always like a kid, like doing like BitTorrent and stuff like that. And uh, I feel like it was a formative time for me when like LimeWire and all those things were big. People were doing peer-to-peer file sharing. And I just always thought, peer-to-peer networks are just fundamentally different than so many other things on the internet. It's just such a fascinating, new paradigm. You can just basically like, I don't know. I've just, as soon as I saw Bitcoin, it was like, oh, you can build money that's peer-to-peer. That makes sense. And so I just
Mm-hmm.
started messing around with that, and I eventually worked at a Bitcoin company in 2012. That company fell apart, but it's like back then the community was so small. It was just like a few thousand people. And so like everyone knew everyone else. And it was just, since then I've worked in a bunch of different places, like Filecoin and Protocol Labs,
Oh
uh,
wow.
IPFS. Like I think I'm still like one of the major contributors on the main IPFS code base or something. But eventually, I moved to Tendermint when Cosmos was just starting out in 2017, and so I've
So
been
you were
in.
still employed. Sorry to stop you. Just
Yeah,
you were still employed by when Jake One was there,
yeah.
right? Was
I
it
think I might have been like
2018?
the fourth or fifth employee or something. It was 2017.
Yeah. Who was working there? I know Pank was the first employee, wasn't he? Was Ethan for
Uh,
sure. Jay was Zaki
yeah,
Manyan already early on?
I think he was involved, but I hadn't met him personally. I think he might have like
Yeah.
invested already.
Hmm.
Um, and there's Ethan Fry, and there
Oh,
was
I didn't know
yes,
Ethan Frey was so early involved in Cosmos. I know Ethan Frey like as the creator of Cosmos, but I didn't know he was early employee of Tendermint.
yeah, he was
This
one
is
of
like
the
the
early people. Uh, I feel like I'm forgetting a few people, but yeah, he was
Mhm.
like there when it was basically the very first formation of the Cosmos SDK. At that time, it was just this thing called
Mhm.
Basecoin. It was just kind of supposed to be like a sample app that you could just like copy, and uh,
Yeah.
yeah, those were just the early days, and it's it's evolved so much since then. It's kind of wild.
Yeah, like I wonder, like, was it your interest in Cosmos, or rather, it was Jay and Tendermint who approached you, or it was, hey, you found this stuff and I want to be involved.
Yeah, so at the time I was working on my own Bitcoin projects. Like I was working on like a really early decentralized exchange, like Bitcoin atomic swap thing, and just sort of like bootstrapping it with my own savings and stuff. So eventually I was running out of money. So I was like, I need to get a job. So I'll just do some freelancing. And like on like this freelancing website, I found them and I was like, wow, this is really cool and relevant. They're doing cool, interesting proof of stake stuff. I feel like at the time I was still kind of a Bitcoin maximalist, but like I was still open to like, okay, I'll mess around with this proof of stake thing and see if it's like BS or not. And I was actually pleasantly surprised with like, okay, this all does make sense, you know, and like they're doing a really good job. This Tendermint thing is really cool, and yeah, so I just like took a full time role there and stuck there for a few years until we founded Nomic.
If I might ask you, maybe something a little personal, who were you most impressed at the Tendermint with the um maybe vision, also skills in programming? Were there some people that were like, oh, this is exceptional guy, I want to learn from him?
It definitely like everyone. I felt that, so it was a cool community.
Hmm.
But Ethan Buckman was sort of the one that standed out to me. Bucky, as we called him, because there's Ethan Fry and Ethan Buckman, and
Hmm.
like I had met him previously and just chatted with him a little bit, and I remembered having an interesting conversation with him. And so when I saw this, and I was like, "Oh, he's the founder. That's cool." Then yeah,
Yeah,
like that's one reason that pulled me in.
but is he technical guy?
Yeah,
Because I
definitely.
always see him as the maybe less technical side, like doing the interviews and speaking a lot, but he's not so public about the development that he's doing. I know his company does, but
I
I
don't know
didn't
if
know he's
he's
that.
yeah, what he's doing now. I think has shifted, and he's more like managing all this stuff going
Hmm.
on, but definitely technical and yeah.
Yeah. Um. Why? Before, okay, before we get to the nomic itself, like why didn't you use Cosmos SDK, the ready framework? Because I was speaking with the other guy that he managed my validator, and he's like, the cool thing about Nomic is like really done from scratch, and they put so much work on themselves doing it, and it will take, it's not only much more work to start this, but there is so much more work in getting this adapted. If you would have like Cosmos SDK, you have all the connections everywhere and stuff. So why didn't you use that?
So yeah, we could have gone down that path, and we would have been a lot farther ahead if we had started with the Cosmos SDK, because so much of it was just already built, and we could just piggyback off of that. It's been a long road of like multiple years of sort of building all this stuff and sort of catching up with what exists in the Cosmos SDK, but we see it as a longer term benefit of like for one, being able to build things that are much higher performance than the Cosmos SDK, so we'd be able to scale to chains that just have way more users, and that hasn't been the bottleneck yet. It's not like the SDK is too slow, so that's more of like a problem for later. But I think the bigger factor right now is building it in a way where it takes far less code, and so we can execute much more quickly. So like all this stuff, like we're basically catching up to feature parity with the SDK and with like staking and that sort of stuff. But right now we're only 3 people, and for most of the lifetime of it, it's just been 2 people. And
Hmm.
compare that with like how many people are working on the SDK all the time and how long it takes. Like I just did a comparison today. Uh, the lines of code in the staking module in the Cosmos SDK, it's like 41,000 lines of code. And in our
Wow.
staking module, which is, well tested and it's feature complete, it has all the same features as the SDK one, it's only 2,000 lines of code, or
Wow.
maybe 3,000.
Hmm.
And so I think a big difference of that is just it's not just as simple as like writing in a different programming language, then it's less lines of code, but Rust versus Go. I think Go lacks a lot of features that let you do this sort of like higher level thinking that lets you reduce the amount of code. Like there's no generics in Go, but Rust you can sort of build out all this infrastructure that saves you from having to do things like very verbosely. And so uh, like that's
I was
basically been our focus all this time on these tools of making like optimal tools so we can just build things really quickly and easily. And
Mhm.
yeah,
So yeah, I was speaking to my friend, and he was like, I guess they just really love Rust, because I don't know why I decided to do it from the start.
that's
And Rust
basically
is
it.
getting so much popularity, right? Cosmos, Jack Dorsey tweeting Rust is the future. So is
It's
it
definitely
in the fact, yeah?
yeah, it's getting a lot of popularity within crypto specifically. It feels like, and yeah,
So you would say this is the language like purely designed for crypto, because some people would say like, hey, JavaScript, right? It's not very designed for crypto, and Agoric is actually like bridging that. But Rust seems like crypto native thing now,
yeah, it didn't
isn't it?
start out that way, but like it was
Hmm.
basically started to re-implement the Mozilla, like the Firefox code base,
Yeah.
because they were just like tired of all the issues people would run into with C++,
Hmm.
plus plus, and they're, but yeah, it's just sort of uh, taken on that role, I guess, of like being a safer language, so it's well suited for
Yeah.
crypto. It's funny that you said
So.
JavaScript because we actually initially started building all our stuff in JavaScript,
Mhm.
and we built like this Tendermint app framework called Lotion that a lot of people liked a lot because it made it just really easy to build a like blockchain app with Tendermint, and like compared to the Cosmos SDK where it's sort of like a full engineering stack, this was just sort of like you could build these little easy demo apps. But
Mhm.
eventually, it was like, okay, this isn't fast enough. Let's replace parts of it with Rust. So we like started with replacing the Merkle tree with the Rust implementation. Then after a while, it was like, you know what? Let's just do all of it in Rust. So that's where
Yeah.
we are now.
Yeah. Um. So there is the year 2018. It's the year you started, isn't it? 2018.
2017
Oh, 2017.
for
Back
working at
then,
Cosmos or for
no. Nomic
yeah,
started
Nomic.
when the
Yeah, it
Nomic.
was the oh yeah, that was the very end of 2018. So yeah.
And at this point, the proof of stake did not really exist much. I mean, what was the Cosmos already live? It was 2018 or 2018, 19 went live, right? So there was no this vision of like proof of stake dominating so much as it is today. And you said you were Bitcoin maxi as well. So why did you even bother starting Nomic if it wasn't so clear that you could um that you could utilize this proof of stake and give another utility to Bitcoin by bridging this to other proof of stake networks? But back then there was not many of them. So.
Yeah, that's a good question. I could just really like I worked with Bitcoin so much and like this felt so different, but like it's really cool that proof of work and proof of stake are actually like really complementary. Like so for instance, proof of stake, like with Tendermint, we have, instant finality. So like as soon as something's in a block, it's valid. And like but it has this issue with long range attacks where like it's only secure for like right now or recent times in history. And then proof of work is the opposite, where the finality is slow, like you have to wait for confirmations of blocks, but it secures, like it increasingly secures the history. Like the further you go back, the
Mhm.
more secure it is. So you just put those two things together and you get the best of both worlds. So Nomic, it's like time stamped on the Bitcoin blockchain, but like you get this instant finality, but if you need to go backwards in history, you just go backwards on like the proof of work chain. So I think
Mhm.
that's like not that many people have thought of it that way yet, but like really you get both
So you do
benefits.
actually think that because we have proof of work maxis, right? We do have proof of stake maxis, but you say proof of stake and proof of work complement each other, and
Yeah.
they actually work perfect together because you can connect it. Yeah, that's really nice view. Um, I sorry, I had the you said that um with fact that you build from the scratch, you can scale more, isn't it, to any other? But is it also that does it also mean that the fact that you build Nomic from scratch, you have faster finality, and maybe more
Not
capabilities of,
necessarily.
or mm-hmm,
We still use Tendermint as the consensus engine.
or
So
mm-hmm,
for like making blocks and that kind of thing, it's basically exactly the same.
mm-hmm,
It's just more like we can execute more transactions per block.
yeah.
So
And you said you can scale to other chains. Obviously you choose IBC as the first one, right? Because you will have access to already this quite a few chains. But from that, do I get it right that you actually plan to bridge it maybe to Solana, uh, and other networks? I don't know, near or.
we don't have any plans for that.
Mhm.
Definitely haven't thought about that. Maybe someday,
Okay.
but yeah.
Because you mentioned that it has these capabilities, right? So why not? There is the question. I'm sure you're aware of Torchain. So how is Nomic different, slash better than Torchain bridge to Cosmos?
So Thorchain doesn't actually have a bridge. It's a little bit different because like they focus on synthetics, so you can still get price exposure to Bitcoin, which for
Mm-hmm.
some use cases, that's just as good. But we like the ability to sort of like onboard. Like if you're somebody who has a lot of Bitcoin, with Nomic, you can just like send it to Cosmos essentially, and then it's in your
Yeah.
balance. With Thorchain, it would be like if you have Bitcoin, you'd have to like sell it for Atom or something, then transfer it in, then sell it back for WBTC,
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
like put it into the Thorchain synthetic Bitcoin. So like with Nomic Bitcoin, it's really like a one-to-one token where you can just like move Bitcoin in and do whatever, trade and stuff, like earn NBTC and then pull it back out. So
But with that, because if I will have NBTC, right? Let's say I already bridged and I have NBTC. The price of NBTC doesn't have to match BTC. It's redeemable, but it doesn't have to match. So essentially, if I would use, I'm going quite far to DeFi, the price of this Bitcoin used in some DeFi platforms on Cosmos could be very different, but at the end, it would be redeemable one to one, right? Always.
yeah, I think
Okay.
yeah, there could be some sort of like price discount, like it trades at slightly lower than native
Mm-hmm.
Bitcoin, just judging the risk of the bridge itself. But
Mm-hmm.
I imagine it'd be pretty
Mm-hmm.
close. And yeah, you can,
Yeah.
it's redeemable since it's worth one Bitcoin, then it should be
Yeah.
pretty close.
So I think you were mentioning about security measures on in CryptoCito before on CryptoCito channel, but if you can,
Yeah.
big also, I tell you something. You aware of Notional? Jacob Gadikan. He tweets a
Oh, yeah.
lot. I'm not sure if you follow him. He hates bridges. He say bridges means hacks, right? And uh, and this is essentially bridge, but there is no other way to bring Bitcoin, right, than with bridge. So is it safe, or there is still some possibilities of the hack?
I
I
think there's
guess
always
always
going to
is.
be that
Yeah.
risk. I mean, there's
Yeah.
always that risk in anything in DeFi too. But yeah, it's just sort of like harder to recover from because like if someone
Hmm.
steals the funds, they're just gone. But
Hmm.
it can put in all these different measures to make it as safe as possible. And we are fundamentally different than a lot of other bridges. So things like
Hmm.
Axelar, they bridge by you essentially just trust the validators to tell you what's going on the other chain.
Hmm.
And in our case, in our chain rules, it's actually verifying the Bitcoin blockchain. So it actually like sees all the proof of work being mined, like all the Bitcoin headers, and verifies that transactions are in those blocks. And so that makes it fundamentally safer. I mean, it doesn't make it perfect. Like, yeah, we always there's some risk of some bug happening, but that alone
Yeah.
makes it a lot safer. But then there's also, we have all these different measures. Like for instance, uh, the validators actually like to unbond. They actually have to remove their voting power on the Bitcoin side
Mm-hmm.
and like prove that that was mined.
Mm-hmm.
So uh, and there's also this emergency dispersal process. So if there's like a liveness failure, like if the chain halts or like all the validators go offline or whatever, you'll still get your money back on the Bitcoin
Mm-hmm.
side. And so we think that's a cool feature. So like just
Yeah.
all these things put together, like we can just reduce risk and like make like if
Yeah.
in the event of some catastrophic failure, if people can still get their money back, then that makes it a lot
Yeah.
more comfortable to use.
And are you interested in any other proof of work chains, or you want to focus on Bitcoin and build economy around that? Because I don't know many other proof of work. I mean, I know few. For example, I like I was using a little bit of Handshake, playing with that, buying some domains. I don't know if you ever heard of this.
Yeah, I know
Um,
Snowflake. That'd be interesting. We haven't been focusing on that yet, but yeah, anything that's a fork of Bitcoin should be relatively
mhm.
easy to port over. And so Dogecoin's one that we've kept in mind a lot. And I won't say which one, but actually a validator on Nomic is the lead developer of Dogecoin. And
Wow.
so like he's pretty into what we're building. I think yeah, that
Okay,
one would be
that
really
should be
cool. And
clear.
then I think that one would be really cool. Yeah, that's some alpha there. That would be really cool
Mhm.
because like I don't know, Elon is just out there pumping Dogecoin and stuff, and like he wants it to be something that can scale to like tons of transactions. And so I feel like just a side chain that's doing all that Dogecoin stuff would be the way to implement that. So
And it's open source, so someone can just use your code to build another bridge for the Dogecoin, for example, right? And
yeah, they'd have to
that would be
modify
exciting.
everything to like make it compatible with Dogecoin, but yeah,
Hmm.
that's terrible.
Hmm.
But like if no one's gonna do that, we expect to just do that eventually. So
Yeah, you mentioned validator, so I want to actually let's. You did the airdrop, and and since then I'm engaged in Nomic, and I'm compounding this because I do think this was the best design of the airdrop that was ever done. And it's amazing because there's you said there was two of you, maybe already three of you, but you knew what are the problems with this sort with airdropping the tokens, that the early validator get the huge advantage, they get this insane APR, and then they end up with this massive powers, not even the validator but the single entities, right? If I would be early, I would get some crazy APRs in the first few days. So you did not enable inflation in the first day. So
yeah,
just think it's really cool what you did. But the other
yeah,
thing,
we sort of got that from like when we were building our test nets and we're just like trying everything out. When we didn't do that, then it was like, okay, I'm the first person to stake. Then suddenly my balance is huge. It's like, whoa,
yeah.
that's crazy. Okay, we should make it delay. We weren't sure how long the delay would be. We'd be like, okay, how long is it going to take for people to like talk about this and care about this and join the network? Should it be like
Hmm.
1 week or will 1 day be enough for people to care? We were pleasantly surprised that like we really got some buzz and a bunch of people were really into it right away. And like within hours, we had tons of validators. So that was really cool.
Yeah, and it was like out of nowhere. You announced, I think, 1 week before the drop in. Did you get a lot of validators engaged into testnet before, or it was just like out of nowhere? So,
Um, yeah, I think we had a test net like right before, like the week before or something.
all right,
But
yeah.
yeah,
So,
but that was like a very small subset compared to the ones that actually joined the main net. So yeah.
and I think the cool thing was that no one really knew exactly what's going on, so everyone just compounded, right? Like everyone was saying, like, so it create really cool movement. So you launching, and well, this is also we will address some of the other questions. um, but the other thing is you launch February, which is essentially top of the market for the Cosmos ecosystem. The hype is like huge, and you could easily profit, and you could make the listing. and maybe fund your operations. So we are half year in nearly since the launch of the token, it's still not listed. It's something that other teams do not do. So why you are not listing this? In
Yeah, we just felt
also, yeah, go
yeah.
on.
Yeah, it just really feels like, since we're in it for the long term, like we're really building towards like all these ideas and dreams we have of things we want to build. And so like making it tradable as soon as possible, that's like people only really do that if they just need to like dump on the market and they just like want to cash out or something. But like that plus, we want to make sure everything's really perfect before there's real value, and we're just taking it like one step at a time, doing these incremental updates. That's why like the bridge right now is still like this experimental thing with a high fee. And so just making nom not transferable, that just seems like, that won't change until the thing is real, and it's like we know that it's really safe, we
Mhm.
can do it responsibly. So
And also you could fund your operations if it's tradable, right? Your tokens could fund work of yours and your partner, your community manager, but it's you've been working for half year more before, essentially for free, not benefiting from this. So also, like, where's the idea for this? Do you work for some company, right? So you fund your work from this. Do I understand it right, or you just
just as sort of, it's
little
like my
savings?
company has some, like my side company has some clients that pay me, and that's just sort of like a side thing that I don't have to spend a ton of
Mm-hmm,
time on. And so yeah, it just feels simpler to just keep it that way instead of, like, I've worked in crypto for so long and I've seen this problem where I call it getting obese, like these companies that just like, they have like the early stages of something they're building, and then suddenly they raise so much money they can afford to hire like 20 or 30 people, and
mm-hmm,
they do that, and like they haven't learned like how to manage everything yet, and like everything's just decisions that could be made with if a few people are like spread out across this huge organization. It's just like slow and inefficient. And then plus with all that money, they can afford to pay their own salaries for like many years, and so they sort of get like
yeah.
fat and lazy as a company. And we're just really into staying lean and like making sure, like for engineering especially, like if something's engineered by 30 people, then it's like so much more complex, and it takes 30 people to think about it, compared to like if it's designed by a few people, it's like a cohesive vision, and it's just like a simpler machine that can still, produce the same
Mm-hmm.
results. And so uh, it's like not common in crypto just because the money is so easy to grab that like, everyone goes for that. But I guess we're a little bit contrarian. We just want to be like this different kind of company. So
Yeah, the lean is healthy, right? So that's really good approach. How much is the sorry for not looking for it before the how much is the team allocation of the tokens?
it's we copied the osmosis distribution
Mm-hmm,
just because we thought, they were doing a good job. It seems like a fair thing that like the market is okay with. So we did 25% goes to the team, and
mm-hmm.
we imagine, so we don't have like governance
25% of Genesis. Sorry.
no of like the inflation. It was
Okay,
like,
so you don't
yeah.
get the Genesis, right?
The
You don't get
Genesis,
the
there's a strategic reserve pool. So that's also what
right.
Osmosis did, where it's like not really for the team, but it's like for the network to sort of raise money. Like
Mm-hmm,
Osmosis
mm-hmm,
basically did that so that they could do OTC deals and like sell tokens to VCs and
mm-hmm.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we haven't done anything like that. Maybe eventually, but like if it
Mm-hmm,
makes sense and it's not going to like take it over and become this VC controlled chain, but it's just like a way that's like even though it's controlled by the team, it's not for rewarding the team, it's for raising money for the network itself. So we can
mm-hmm,
imagine that could exist as like the protocol itself holding BTC that it uses to like pay developers or pay marketers or whoever.
mm-hmm. Mhm. So I guess this inflation that will go towards the team is towards your growing team, because I guess you will use that to slowly expand and grow into a bigger, I guess, company or community of builders, right?
Right. Yeah.
Um, Someone is asking, what is the necessity of non token?
So
Like, why not just, yeah?
the biggest reason is for staking and providing security, because we'd thought about it for years of like, is there a way to just use Bitcoin as the staking token? Because that'd be really cool, where people could just like earn staking rewards, like put in Bitcoin, you're earning Bitcoin staking rewards. But
Mm-hmm,
it's sort of this circular problem where like the stake is securing the Bitcoin that's being held in the network. And so if that's like, if basically if you stole the Bitcoin and like, you essentially wouldn't be slashed at all or anything. So like there's no way to
mm-hmm,
punish those people unless it's a native token on chain. So
mm-hmm,
that's the main reason. Then it just makes sense that like uh, sort of like as the protocol makes money, the nom token like basically you can stack sats as staking
mm-hmm,
rewards too,
mm-hmm.
and that increases security even more because there's more reason to hold nom.
Yeah, I do see, like, now it makes perfect sense. Sometimes I don't really see the sense of the certain proof of stake tokens, but for me nom makes total sense, and I will tell you about this. But there is Olivier saying, if we send BTC, will we be able to stack it and earn nom sats? No, BTC just answered, it's not to stake. You stake nom, and with nom, if you stake your nom, you receive nom and sats, but the bitcoin you accumulate and you can redeem later to the BTC. The withdrawal is not available. Is it correct? Because I actually did deposit it to
It
see myself, but you can't withdraw.
So it actually is available and it is being processed and stuff. There's just an issue with like this early stage right now where it's just delayed. So like
Yeah.
I think if you wait a few days, eventually it'll get included on the
Oh.
Bitcoin blockchain. So that's just a bug during
Mhm.
this experimental phase, but we're dealing with that, and that should you'll get
Yeah.
it eventually if you've already initiated a withdrawal.
I, I tell you why I like nom, because for me it's like simply like dividend bearing asset, and it makes perfect sense because bridge is the product right here that you deliver, and this product generate income in bitcoin, so you as the nomic holder receive that. And this is like amazing because like this, you can see it works clearly as some company that pay dividends, don't know how high. But with that, have you put some thoughts to the fee once it will be full on, like once you want the bridge to not be experimental anymore? I want to know what's the best fee design for bridge.
Yeah, so I think this is something that I think will just evolve over time as like the market of bridges changes, but definitely some fraction of a percent. And
Hmm.
so there's like a few different things to tweak. So like I think it makes sense to charge a fee on deposits, but also we could be charging fees on IBC transfers and things like
Hmm.
that. Um, so it'll definitely be like way smaller than it is now, or even
Yeah,
eventually zero. Who knows if there's like other
yeah,
things going on in the protocol that are like the revenue generators for the protocol. But
yeah,
uh,
because
figure it out as we go. Essentially, in governance, it can become a governance set thing, and yeah.
hmm hmm I was thinking myself, like, what's the perfect design? Should the larger deposit have lower fee? Because even if you go like with 0.1%, right? If someone deposit 100 millions, it could happen. That's 100,000. That 100K fee. That sound seems a little big, although maybe lower, and for this is unfair for the smaller one. So like maybe it's the like cap of the fee, right? So like I always like try to think for this myself. But you said some other products. What you essentially what's the end game here? Because you bridge Bitcoin, it can be used in the Cosmos IBC. Do you want to bring other tools yourself here on Nomic?
Yeah, definitely. So like the bridge is really just what we see as our first product where, it's something like at the core of what we're building, is all this Bitcoin stuff. And so like that's like a primitive we can build on top of, but like eventually, the fees in the bridge market, it might be competed down to zero or something.
Mm-hmm.
We think there's other cool things we can build with NBTC. So, for instance, now that Terra is gone, there's a big need for stable coins in the Cosmos ecosystem. And so we could imagine doing like a maker style over collateralized stable coin where NBTC is the collateral. So you could have
Mm-hmm.
like an NUSD, and then that makes sense that like how those typically work. You're charging interest on the people who are borrowing
Mm-hmm.
against their NBTC, and so that's revenue for the protocol there.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking, I do agree the stable coins are very big, and I think in the next few years they will grow a lot. The market of the stable coins probably will grow a lot. There is also this few coming to Cosmos, right? Agoric plan to do IST. There is Juno trying to do Ultra. I was wondering if anyone from other teams did approach you to ask some questions about NBTC with the exactly these plans to use NBTC as collateral. Any of these teams?
I don't think anyone's talked about that to us for stable coins specifically, but we have
Mm-hmm.
had inbound interest of people that just want to make sure we have an IBC connection with them so that they can have like NBTC pools and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah, I don't think anyone yet, as at least, has thought about it for stablecoin collateral.
Yeah. If you'd collateralize, I mean, it's probably long ahead. What's the design? 150% over collateralized, but it still could bring the crashes, like with the flash crashes. So it's essentially the question: is crypto good for using them as collateralized for stable coins?
I think so. I mean, I think like for Bitcoin, a 50% crash would be rare. Like if we can build up enough liquidity here for NBTC, I think that could be something that's stable enough. I mean, it's like Terra worked for so long, and like that, like obviously it didn't work in the end, but like there's
Did you have an exposure?
oh no, almost. So we had sent over. We were going to have Do Kwon invest in our company, and he was going to pay us in UST. And then it was like a few days before it all fell apart. But
Yeah.
um,
Uh, did you have like doubts about Terra before? Sorry for changing the subject, but
uh, I mean, I wasn't sure. It always felt like this like bipolar thing where like half the people are like, "This is going to fall apart," and half the people are like, "No, it's perfect. Like, just it's going to keep
yeah.
going up." And like I wasn't sure. I knew like there was like Basis and Iron Finance and things like that where those algorithmic stablecoins had fallen apart. But it was
Mhm.
like maybe Terra is just something where it's liquid enough that those explosions
Yeah,
won't happen. But yeah, and the
I
fact
agree.
that they
Like I,
bought Bitcoin Reserve, like they bought 2 billion in Bitcoin to sort of start backing Terra, and that was actually
mhm,
going to live in Nomic. And
yeah.
yeah, but
Um, I think everyone was blinded because, like, the first time I would look at this, it's like, hey, but it's essentially a Ponzi, right? But then you go 1 month, 2 months, 6 months, and it grows to this massive valuations, and you're like, okay, I'm just clearly do not understand something here, and it's all good, and you get convinced into this, and then when you are like convinced that it works, then when it collapses, that's what. But yeah, like many like big characters in crypto seems were approaching you. Speaking of the validators, I feel there is a little bit of the issues, and it seems it can't get resolved. I think number one validator on Nomic has over 20% voting power. um Do you know how maybe this could be solved, or is there any move? Because I see even binary holdings, they openly say like, hey, redelegate from us. But when you view the page, people see it's number one, the low fee on the 1%. Just why not? Do you know how to solve this problem?
Yeah, definitely a big step we can take is sort of like, if we think about, Nomic as a DAO, and there's that strategic reserve, which is like the DAO's own nom. Like
Mhm.
right now, that's just us who controls it, the developers. But like over time, we know that should become like this decentralized set of like people who govern Nomic. But we can have sort of a program where validators can sort of like submit their info, and like we can judge like which validators are helping the community, because there's so many validators that are there helping people all the time, or
Mhm.
like providing services, running relayers and running block explorers and all that stuff. And if we have this program that just makes big delegations from like the protocol owned nom to those people, then that can balance it out a lot, and especially weight the validators who are really helping the
Mhm.
project.
Mhm.
And so uh,
I
then
want.
like staking rewards that go to that, can just be like put back into the system, so that it's not like reducing the
Yeah.
staking rewards for actual users. But it's sort
Yeah.
of like the protocol itself, like the governance of the protocol can sort of add stake to people to balance
Yeah.
it out.
I guess you must be the big believer in Bitcoin. So like, is Bitcoin money or it's store of value, or what is Bitcoin? I don't know if you, because many developers do not give much thoughts to finances or economy. I don't know if you do give thought to this, and you think of the things if Bitcoin is money.
Yeah, I mean, I think about that a lot. Yeah, at least right now, it's definitely not money. Like, it's not used in payments. There's things like Lightning Network and stuff like that, but it's like, they don't see huge amounts of traction. It definitely is a store of value asset. It's just like buying stocks or something, but a different kind of asset. Uh, I think it's really cool that it's becoming so liquid, and that it's been like since the beginning of crypto, it's always been the biggest by far. And so it's nice for the world to sort of center around one like intermediate big one that like, everything else can sort of trade through. And so yeah, I think yeah, it can just sort of become like this reserve currency of crypto. And that's sort of like a vision that we have, especially with Nomic, is that like all these different blockchains and DAOs and decentralized entities can sort of hold Bitcoin in reserves, which is sort of stronger than them just having their own tokens.
So would you say it is crypto money for the crypto ecosystem, or also you see it as the money in the
I think
other
it can
parts, in the
become,
traditional finance?
yeah, definitely for the crypto ecosystem, but yeah, I think it can become, just over time, it'll be adopted for other things. I think like one important thing to think about is that for any currency, any money, it's always like it has no intrinsic value. And so like people use that as a criticism, and like comparing to like stocks or something like that, where it's a
Hmm.
business and you're like owning part of the assets. Like this is just a completely different thing, but it's the same as gold or the US dollar or anything else. It's
Yeah.
like the money is just the bubble that never pops. It's like it doesn't have any actual value. It's only valuable because people think it's valuable. And so
Yeah.
it's this sort of like very human cultural thing.
Hmm.
And I think Bitcoin, compared to all the other ones, all the other cryptocurrencies, it just has the strongest element of that, of people who say, oh, Bitcoin is valuable. And so
Yeah.
that's like, if you think about it, the difference between having nom and earning Bitcoin staking rewards, and like we alternatively could have done something where it's like a buy and burn strategy, where like that Bitcoin that you're earning, that the protocol is earning, could just be like buying up nom and increasing the price, and you'd still be like
Hmm.
earning that way. But it just sort of fundamentally feels more real if you're holding nom and you're getting paid in Bitcoin, just because something about Bitcoin just makes it feel more valuable. It's like the gold of the ecosystem. And so then it can just be up to you if you want to buy more nom or not or whatever. But
Yeah.
so
This is good point, because I do question, like, I'm trying to learn about money. What is money? And I don't think anyone with even big experience can really answer this. And maybe even nom could be this nice inflationary asset on Bitcoin, but the inflation essentially ends, which I don't know if it's the best, because I tell you what's my trying to understand, because we live in this dollar system, right? And the poor person like me can go to bank, get the loan, money is created from the air, and with this loan, I can pay maybe low interest rates in the certain time, so I can game the system, build the company, and build the value of this credit having nothing. And essentially, I don't really see the same things being possible with Bitcoin, because you cannot just create Bitcoin, right? It will be non-inflationary at some point, which doesn't really encourage this sort of spending and building and the wealth creation, but it encourage the holding. And with this holding, that also drive down the liquidity. If more people think, hey, I hold it because it grows in value, there is no liquidity, you can't really use it as the economy. What would you say? What's the solution for this paradox for the people who have doubts like me?
yeah, that's a really good point of conversation. So this is kind of like Austrian economics and stuff, where so there's like different extremes where on one side you have the fiat system where everything's based on credit. It's really easy to create more money, and the Federal Reserve, like even just in the last few years, has created trillions of new dollars, and they're just like it's not based on anything real. It's just based on like
Hmm.
this, quantity that can be inflated. And so like that extreme has caused so much inflation. It's like, caused a lot of issues in recent years. Then on the other side of the spectrum, we have things like Bitcoin, where it's like this hard thing. You have to actually spend a bunch of energy to create it. You can't create more than that. And, but yeah, it's like you can't just lend to people, like create more to like boost things when necessary. I think there's middle ground, where in the future we can have credit with crypto, and like the fact that it's all fully verifiable on chain means you can sort of like trust that system a lot more. You won't have these
Hmm.
sort of debt crises where like basically everything's over leveraged, then one thing falls apart, then it's like a cascading effect of everything
Hmm.
falling apart. And it's funny that we've seen that in crypto just in the last month, essentially, with like all these centralized crypto institutions. So then with Three Arrows Capital, since they had borrowed so
Hmm.
much money from everyone they could, then when they fell apart, then they couldn't pay back all these other people, and so then those other people feel the pain. So like if that was instead done on chain, like everyone could have seen, look, Three Arrows Capital is like borrowing this much money, and we know like they don't actually like back up these positions they have. And like people would have been able to see that risk if it was. And so that's sort of like one of the ideals of crypto, is just being transparent and verifiable that way. So I think there's a way to sort of have credit and have healthy amounts of liquidity while still being safe and verifiable. But like the hardcore Bitcoin side of that spectrum, that's a really good foundation to build on at the core. And just then at the edges, we could see like banks start to emerge that lend in Bitcoin or something like that on
Yeah.
credit.
Yeah. This is a really cool point, because we do live in this kind of wrap around the idea. We live in this inflation system, right? But maybe there is possibility of switch into other systems. Someone keep Jacob actually keep telling me you must read the Bitcoin standard before you speak. I haven't read it yet. So
The Bitcoin
um
standard, I think, has a lot
yeah.
of good stuff in it. My issue with it is that it's basically he just rewrote the works of Nick Szabo. So Nick Szabo is
Um,
like an early cypherpunk was like really influential to Bitcoin from like years before Bitcoin. And he basically wrote all this stuff on his blog. He's even like the creator of the term smart contract and stuff like that.
Yeah,
And
I
so,
I, I do heard of Nick Szabo. Like, wasn't he often being considered to be actual Satoshi?
yeah, some people think so. I think, yeah, he had written a paper called B Money that
Hmm.
has a design for basically something really similar to Bitcoin from years before Bitcoin. So
Yeah.
even if he's not Satoshi, he's at least very influential in like Satoshi definitely knew about his works. So
Right. And maybe he did contribute and maybe he was on the same forums, right? You do know a lot like about Bitcoin and everything surrounding that, which is also really cool. So at the end, some people um like to chase airdrops. Let's not pretend. And someone was even asking that they heard that there will be the airdrop for those who send BTC to Nomic. I don't think there was anything like this, but um,
that's a good
I
idea. I don't know if we can confirm or deny anything, but yeah.
but I don't think anyone should do the transfers based on this assumption, because essentially you will lose 20% of your Bitcoin. So don't do
It's
it on
definitely
this
there right
assumption.
now. If you're just interested in Nomic and you want to try out a deposit and see what it's like, that's why you should
Yeah.
deposit. So
Yeah, so I did $20 deposit. I see it's actually growing every day. I was expecting only 1 day or 2 days there will be deposit, but I'm interested that it's interesting that the deposits are keep coming, and there is two more airdrops ahead of us, right? So have you thought about, because people do really care about those, have you thought how will be the second airdrop? Is it another snapshot for the Atom stakers? Is it for the stakers of Nom? Is it for other chain?
I don't know if I can give out the alpha yet, but
Okay.
yeah.
And I know you said two next updates, two next upgrades. Will Nom and Bitcoin become transferable? Are these planned for this year?
Yeah, like so these should just be in the next few months.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's hard for us to promise timelines because, like, when we first launched the first StakeNet release, we thought these upgrades would happen in like March and April or something like that. And obviously, it took us a lot longer than that. So we don't want to like promise certain dates
Yeah.
yet. But where we're at, yeah, it does feel like it's coming fast. We're accelerating. So
Yeah. Um, I wonder, did you have like anyone from the crypto space, someone like that as like big respect? Someone that Dokwon probably was. Could you like name other people? Like just for to give some hype,
who are into
you know?
Nomic or what?
Um yeah, who are asking about Nomic, who are into Nomic. There any big projects approached you?
Definitely a lot of the Cosmos ecosystem
Mm-hmm.
projects. Beyond that, I feel like we're still a little under the radar. Like only people within like the true Cosmos people are the only ones who know about us. But on
Mm-hmm.
Twitter, we've gotten some engagement. I don't know. He's not as big of a name as Do Kwon, but there's Eric Voorhees. He was just like
Mm-hmm.
especially like really big in Bitcoin in the early days, and so he has a large following. And it seems like he's tweeted about Nomic a few times, and he's into it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think there's others too, but yeah.
Okay. Is there anything that someone said the Lightning CTO also tweeted about Nomic. It's getting there. The hype last few days was great. Is there anything that you want to say at the end about Nomic that is not said enough, that there is no focus on this on Nomic, but you think there should be more attention on this part? Is there anything you want to say at the end?
Yeah, just sort of to connect to our vision. So, like, we're the Bitcoin bridge right now, and this is our first step. But just want to reiterate that, we're in this for the really long term. We have all these ideas and dreams about sort of building the ultimate chain that's like engineered extremely well and creating these amazing products from it. So like, yeah, just I hope if you're into us and you're like learning about Nomic that you're in it for the long haul and you like want to be a true believer like we are.
You do it for sure right. When the governance will be enabled? Sorry, like I should ask this before.
So we have a lot of ideas there. We don't want it to just be simply the same. Like maybe we'll do some similar governance to all the other Cosmos chains, but we're really into the idea of futarchy. I'm not sure if you're familiar with futarchy.
No, not at all.
So that's sort of this idea of governing via markets instead of
Mm-hmm.
democracy. And so as long as there's some, like, you can use democracy for like people to sort of pick the values of like what the network wants to accomplish. So in this case, it could be like how much Bitcoin per nom you're earning. And
Mm-hmm.
then you construct these markets where the proposals are then traded on, and people can, so the market can sort of say like, if this proposal goes through, it increases the likelihood of, increases the amount of Bitcoin per nom that will be earned.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's sort
Mm-hmm.
of, instead of just voting, it's like people sort of have to like put their money where their mouth is. And like we think it's
Yeah.
like a cool thing that we want to experiment with. So we could first try that out with just setting the bridge fee in Nomic, and like the market could say like, like maybe a fee that's too high will decrease the amount of deposits, and so that will lower the
Mm-hmm.
amount of revenue for the protocol. But also one that's too low, there's not enough revenue being captured, and so like the market, instead of just people sort of voting on it in a fuzzy way, it's like people
Yeah.
could actually trade on what they really think will happen. I
I,
think
I
that's
I was I was thinking exactly like adjusting this depending on the market needs. It's actually amazing that. But I do hope the governance would be correct with the guesses, because the wrong governance can of course kill that for with too high of the fees, for example. Um, Thank you, Matt. Also, this was very spontaneous because till the last minute I actually didn't know that we gonna make it. So
well, I'm
sorry
glad we
if
did that.
maybe sorry
Yeah,
if I
we
could
just
give you. Go on.
sorry. We had just seen your video the other day, and we're like, wow, this guy, has a lot of good things to say. Like, you're very clear about it. Like, you're thinking a lot of the same things we were thinking. So we just thought, that'd be
Thank
cool.
you.
And he's like, oh, I want to interview these people. So yeah, I'm glad we're talking to you. This is a good conversation.
Thank you. I do really appreciate that. And I actually wanted to say, was because of the fact I didn't know till the last minute, maybe I could schedule my questions better in my head, because sometimes, I had the question and then 5 seconds later I forgot the question. That I think we did address a lot. Yes, Flo, it was addressed. So all of those stuff was addressed. I don't know who. Jude is your partner.
He's my co-founder. Yeah.
Yeah, we gonna do the chat maybe, if you will still want to do it, maybe with the next upgrade. Till then, if something happen, I will be happy to cover that. As I said, I'm validator on a Nomic now. So I'm engaged because I got engaged with compounding this. So I decided, hey, I will be active here. So we're gonna do with your partner next time. And thank you for your time. Thank you. It was really good conversation.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. And thanks for
No
being into.
worries. Take care. Take care. Don't work too hard, or rather do.
Okay.